Hi everyone, I'm Rochelle Rosario, and today I'm going to be talking about the law of attraction and toxic positivity. I know so many people who swear by the law of attraction, what you do will come back to you, and I believe in it to a certain extent. But my main goal for today is to help us change our perspective when it comes to certain circumstances, and hopefully for us to better read the room. For example, maybe not to share these beliefs to a friend who's in an abusive relationship, because as much as our intention is to help, sometimes it's better to keep our thoughts to ourselves. Myself included, I've made plenty of mistakes and I'm still learning. So I want to share as I learn and self reflect to see how I can improve and better myself. Because I cringe when I look back at my own past toxic positivity. I always used to say things like, everything happens for a reason, which I don't believe in now. And I regret saying it at certain times, even though it came from a place of love and support. Looking back, I could have chosen more appropriate words. So I'm going to start with my own personal experiences from some years ago. I opened up to a friend telling her about an act of violence I was subjected to at the time. I was really upset and crying. And she said to me, "Let me guess, you slept with him too soon?" In a very condescending tone, like I should have known better or waited longer. I did explain to her that it has nothing to do with the amount of time you've known the person. And then she said, "You need to reflect on what you're doing to keep on attracting these men. Why does this keep on happening to you?" My heart broke. I felt sick. I felt like trash. And to be honest, since then, I've kept a lot of stuff to myself to avoid feeling like that again, which is a shame because when you go through something traumatic, it is healthy to get it off your chest and not to keep it bottled up. But now I'd rather just tell one friend and call a helpline. And what happened wasn't my fault. People need to direct their blame to the correct person, the perpetrator. But when I felt stronger, I did send her these statistics from UN Women UK, Rape Crisis, and Refuge Charity. 97% of women in the UK have been sexually harassed. 1 in 4 women have been raped or sexually assaulted as an adult. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic abuse in her lifetime. And every 30 seconds, the police receive a call for help relating to domestic abuse. Along with this pick, don't tell women they gotta protect themselves. They already know that, and they're trying to. Men gotta stop raping. That's how rape stops. And this statistic from Dr. Jessica Taylor is really informative as well. She says, looking at police data, which confirms that within just one area, there are almost 40,000 known domestic abuse perps. I guess I just wanted to share that so women know how common these men are and why you might feel like you're surrounded by abusive men. You kind of are. I get real sick of people telling women that it's their fault or that they attract men like this or that the common denominator is her as the woman. If tens of thousands of perps live in one area and they are only the known ones, then you have a high chance of being abused. This is one of the arguments I've been making for years. If we have millions of violent men in the population, women will be repeat victims through absolutely no fault of their own. It's so incredibly likely for a woman or girl to be a victim of male violence. It's actually rarer not to be. So when someone tells you about any abuse that they've been subjected to, please do not look for reasons in how it could have been their fault. The reason why a perpetrator will harm someone is because they want to. That is it. I've had my own friends, well, we're not friends anymore, victim blame me, saying I need to be more assertive, or even excuse my perp who already had a violent history, saying, "Oh, he probably thought you was playing hard to get." Oh, and I've lost count the amount of people who have said that perpetrators have targeted me because they can sense my vulnerability. But then what about the first man to ever assault me? I was 20 years old at the time, and my perp wasn't a boyfriend or anything. But if you knew me at 20 years old, I was so outspoken, loud, feisty, and I hadn't had any previous abuse. So it's not like he could sense my post-traumatic stress or anything, as I didn't have any. A lot of these perps will simply look for a vulnerable situation where they can get away with it, not necessarily a vulnerable person. I'm going to share a clip now from Jess and Jamie's podcast where they basically say, even at your peak physical strength, like female UFC fighters, it does not mean you're safe from these perpetrators.
Yeah.
It's not vulnerability.
I mean, what about
the
female UFC fighters and women in the army? If we even think about like physical disabilities, let's think about women at the peak of their physical ability, who are some of the best in the world, and they often have come out and said, "No, I've been raped and I've been in domestic abuse and things like that," which means that it's not a vulnerability that is being targeted, and equally.
If someone discloses abuse to you, a simple "I'm sorry that happened to you" or "I'm here for you," those few words can be a massive help to victims and survivors. Any thoughts of what was you wearing? Were you drinking? Were you flirting? Or why didn't you fight back? Please keep them thoughts to yourself. You wouldn't like it if someone spoke to your daughter, niece, mum, etc. that way. So please stop questioning and reacting that way to others. And listen, even if you were flirting or wearing a low-cut top and a short skirt, it doesn't matter. Even if you're naked and just about to have sex and you last minute change your mind, that is okay. You're allowed to change your mind at any point. And if your boyfriend, husband, or the person you're being intimate with continues without your consent, that is abuse. Even stealthing, which is taking the condom off without your knowledge and consent, that is abuse. A lot of people assume a sexual predator is a creepy stranger hiding in a bush, but that's not always the case. And if anything, that's the rarest of cases. And please remember, women do not get attacked because of their actions. They get attacked because of the actions of their attacker. For people who ask themselves, why was I abused? The reason you were abused has nothing to do with you. It wasn't your behavior, your personality, or your choices that caused the abuse. The only person responsible for the abuse was the one who chose to abuse you. Don't look within yourself for an explanation of someone else's choice. I'm going to share another clip from Jess and Jamie's podcast where they discuss questions like, what do I need to change to prevent being targeted?
I think a lot of people feel validated by these conversations because so many women spend hours, days, months, years going round in their head about what things is it about them that they need to change to prevent them being targeted, or try and understand why they were targeted. And actually, it's nothing to do with you.
No.
It's that we live in a violent, misogynistic world where
you're very likely to be a victim of abuse because there are very many perpetrators. I agree. I mean, I honestly...
And that isn't a safe psychological space to be in, but it's more accurate. And I think that sometimes the truth isn't comfortable, but we at least owe it to people to explain the evidence.
There's a very famous book and film called The Secret, which I used to love and recommend to everyone. But I remember this one part that didn't ever sit right with me. Dr. Joe Vitale says, everything that's around you right now in your life, including the things you're complaining about, you've attracted. I didn't attract the car accident, I didn't attract the debt, etc. And I'm here to say, yes, you did attract it. Now, I understand consequences to your actions. So if you're spending more than your means or you're drink driving, it would not surprise me if you were in debt or in a car accident. But when it comes to things like acts of violence, miscarriages, being cheated on, living in a war zone, I don't believe you attracted that at all. And listen, I used to manifest every morning. I had vision boards and crystals galore, and I believed in it wholeheartedly. Some things have come true and some haven't. And there's some things that have happened to me, for example, my acts of violence, which I didn't think of at all. That's why now when people say thoughts become things, I take it with a pinch of salt. Also, when my suicidal ideation was at its worst, for years I would pray to die. I'd visualize and manifest the different ways I could die. And that didn't happen, thank God. Even with an ex, I used to manifest and visualize our future together, the area where we wanted to live, white picket fence and all that. And it didn't happen. Again, thank God. But yeah, these are just a couple of examples of how manifesting and visualizing doesn't always work, even if you believe in it wholeheartedly and really, really want it. Also, hindsight is 2020, and a lot of times it's a blessing that it didn't work out the way you wanted it to. Or when people say everything in your life is a reflection of a choice you have made. If you want a different result, make a different choice. No one escapes their own conditioning. That's the real accountability. Not instant karma, just the natural consequence of who you repeatedly choose to be. Whew. Now this quote I love. Not everything is a choice. You don't get to pick your parents, where you're born, or anything as a child. You likely didn't choose your trauma or illness or your disability. Sometimes things just happen, and it has absolutely nothing to do with choice. This actually makes me think of my friend Millie, who has CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, where a person experiences persistent, severe, and debilitating pain. And she has an allergy to water. And all of this happened out of the blue when she was 17 years old. I'm going to include her video, A Miracle for Millie, in the description, in case you wanted to learn and understand more. Her story is actually very similar to the Netflix documentary, Take Care of Maya. And I just wanted to mention these conditions because it's something that was definitely not a choice and definitely not something they attracted. Okay, back to everything happens for a reason. Dr. Jessica Taylor says, I mean, if you wanted to be picky, I could say yes, the rape and abuse did happen for a reason. The reason is that the abuser is a nasty effing lowlife who made an active choice to harm others instead of looking at themselves. That's the reason. But it has nothing to do with your life or your journey. It didn't happen to you to teach you a lesson or to help you or to make you grow as a person or to make you stronger or to mold or shape or define you. This also makes me think of Sophia, whose daughter Azalea sadly died at 8 months old. She passed away from leukemia. I'm going to share her clip now.
Azalea was too good to be on earth.
Yeah.
Like that one is like a knife. It feels like I'm just being stabbed. I'm just my daughter should be here. But it's comfort in, and I feel like it comes from generations and years ago of knowing what to say. And I feel like I want to change that direction in how people actually comfort people. Yeah. And like not use them terms because that actually, people, I kind of hold face value and say, oh, like, yeah, thank you or whatever. But really inside, I'm like actually like dying. Yeah. So really, do you know, the best thing to ever say to somebody in that situation is to say, you were doing so well. Yeah. I'm really proud of how far you come in. Take time for yourself, be gentle with yourself, rather than giving them
everything happens for a reason. Yeah,
everything
like
happens for a reason. And we're so used to saying everything happens for a reason. I'm like, but what reason is this?
And when I hear people say things like that to those who are grieving, I know their intention is good and it's to comfort, but it can come across very dismissive of someone's pain. Something else which is similar to everything happens for a reason is when people talk about lessons from the universe. For example, the universe is going to give you the exact same lesson in different versions over and over again until you master it. And these lessons are here to help you evolve and thrive. Or sometimes the universe will send you the same challenging experience to see if you'll trust your intuition this time. And listen, if you believe in that and it's working for you, fantastic. I just don't think it's healthy to say those things to someone who's been subjected to abuse again and again. Or even Sophia and her daughter Azalea, who passed away. What lesson is that? And if you truly believe the universe did make that happen for some sort of lesson, please don't express those beliefs out loud, especially to a grieving mother. I'm going to share a clip now from Caroline Stanbury's podcast. She had a guest on called Natasha, and mate, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say read the room, and that you don't always need to express your beliefs out loud.
My close family member recently had a child, and her baby was in hospital for the first week of its life. It was in ICU, that's the word. It wasn't premature, it was just in ICU. It caught an infection. And I couldn't help but think the reason this is happening to this baby is actually not for the baby. This is actually for the mother. And I was like, this is happening in her life to help her to evolve. And I kept saying to the other family members, you need to help her to realize that this is for her own growth. And she's meant to smash through her own ego because she's never had anything bad happen to her in her life. That was probably the first thing where she'd been terrified for the fact she was about to lose her child.
But that's a very, very hard message to deliver, Natasha. Like, it's a very hard message. And that's the point. You're like, unless you have a receptive friend, if you went in there, most women walked into a hospital bed and said, this is for you, not for the baby. Most women would have decked you.
Another phrase I want to delve into is your vibe attracts your tribe. Positivity attracts positive people. Like attracts like. Now, if you use those terms when it comes to abuse, it's the same as victim blaming, because you're basically saying you need to be more positive in life. If you were a positive person and not coming from a low vibrating place, then you wouldn't have attracted those bad things happening to you. Like a victim survivor attracted their perpetrator and deserved those things because she put that energy or vibe out there to be abused, raped, or murdered. It's ridiculous. Also, a lot of abusers can be really sweet and gentle and charming in the beginning. So you can be positive and manifest your dream person, and then a few months or even a few years later, their true colours come to the surface. But that doesn't mean you've attracted it. It just means that they're extremely manipulative, calculating, and patient. And I say patient because I've seen abusers firsthand wait a very long time before they show their true character. So it doesn't make sense if you tell someone they attracted that kind of relationship because their partner was a completely different version of themselves in the beginning. And being positive doesn't mean you're in some sort of magical protective bubble where no harm can ever be done to you. For example, in 2019, I was over 2 years sober. And if you knew me back then, I was super positive, manifesting, meditating, practicing yoga every day, surrounded by crystals, and I was still sexually assaulted. You can be a positive Polly all you want. It doesn't prevent you from being harmed by an abuser. And in absolutely no way did you attract them. The whole just think positive, good vibes only can be really invalidating, hurtful, and dismissive to someone's feelings and experiences. Another example I wanted to touch on regarding your vibe attracts your tribe, like attracts like, was the people I surrounded myself with in 2018. That year, my boyfriend was cheating on me. I had a rat in my circle. Never thought I'd say those words.
And you learn the two greatest things in life.
What?
Look at me. Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
And I also had a colleague who was super possessive and controlling. Now, I would be devastated if people looked at me and thought I was like any of them. Integrity is everything, and I do not want to have the reputation of being a cheater or a grass or possessive and controlling. Just because I was close to those people does not mean I have the same character as them. And that's how I look at people who are still close to them now. I mean, some of them I know are cheaters and rats themselves, but others, they might be like me, didn't have a clue and had to find out the hard way. Even some years ago, I was friends with a man who was extremely abusive to his girlfriend and previous girlfriends. I did not have a clue. That's why now I pray for discernment, wisdom, and clarity. Please, God, help me to see through people with ill intent. In Jesus' name, amen. I think it's a nice trait to have, to see the good in people, but it doesn't always work in your favor. There's this strawberry analogy that I'm going to share on screen now, which says, you become who you surround yourself with. And it reminds me of 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. And it's so true. And I notice it with certain groups I don't get along with. We just don't click for some reason. And then later on, I find out they're supporters of Andrew Tate or Tommy Robinson. And then I take it as a compliment that we don't get on, because I don't really want to align or spend time with people with those values. Even people who are known as takers, taking your energy, your time, your money. There's a quote which I love, and it says, it's actually healthy when people dislike you. That means you're not a people pleaser and you have boundaries. A lot of your problems come from not putting people in their place the first time they try you. Be careful what you tolerate. You're teaching people how to treat you. Now, I've spoken about a lot of the flaws that come with the law of attraction, but I also want to touch on some of the positives that I've seen from it. Starting with Layla, also known as La La La, Let Me Explain, I want to share a little clip from her podcast.
So the first time when I first started thinking about the law of attraction and understanding it, I was in quite a lot of debt. And I owed my friend 30 quid, which doesn't sound like a lot of money. But at the time I was like, I really, really need to keep on the hold of this 30 quid until payday. But my friend really needed it back. And I was, them ones were a bit like, oh, should I avoid these calls? But I didn't avoid the calls. I was in law of attraction mindset. So I was like, you know what? Money will come. So I'm going to go and take out this last 30 quid that I've got and I'm going to pay her, and I'm not going to stress about it because it's not going to leave me broke, because the money will come. So I got to the cash point to take out this 30 quid. And when I reached the cash point, there was 30 quid sitting there. I hadn't put my card in. This was not my 30 quid. There was 30 quid sat at the cash point. And I looked around and there was nobody else around whatsoever. Nobody had been there. And I took the 30 quid and I paid her. And to me, that was such fucking confirmation. It did feel like magic. I don't know how it happened. I'm sorry to the person who lost their 30 quid at the cash point, but it really felt like, okay, this is fucking amazing.
And she reminded me of something I read, which I'll put on screen. When you do the right things for the right reasons, the right thing comes to you. Just like karma doesn't miss, blessings don't either. Move with pure intentions. This and Layla's story brought to mind a couple of my own financial disagreements I've had in the past. I'm going to call them place A and place B. I had really poor communication and boundaries with both of these places, and I take accountability for that. I should have communicated better and set clearer boundaries from the get-go. Now, place B, I can't even get into. I'll just say it is like drawing blood from a stone. A lot of ego, a lot of entitlement, a lot of privilege. And when I say privilege, I think of what Janaea Khan said, which is, privilege isn't about what you've gone through. It's about what you haven't had to go through. Anyway, when it comes to place A, as much as there was a disagreement and miscommunication at first, after about a month, we were on the same page. And this place has shown nothing but compassion and respect. I can see this place has integrity, and more importantly, this place has a moral conscience. Out of the two, this is the only one whose actions have lined up with their words. And that's when I think of Layla's story. Because of place A's moral conscience, I know and believe they have blessings coming back to them, because they've acted with respect and integrity and with the intention to pay it back, just like Layla. The thing is, when you say karma or what you do will come back to you, people straight away think of it as a negative connotation, but it applies to blessings too. For my friends of faith, Galatians 6:7, you will always harvest what you plant. For whatever a man sows, he will also reap. And there was a couple Sunday services I went to in May where we were taught about the principle of generosity. And I'm going to share a few pictures from them now. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed, and the generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And this made me think of my holidays in 2023. I remember January that year, I was looking at my budget and thinking, there's no way I can afford a holiday this year. And I was sad because a holiday really does help with my mental health, depression, and suicidal ideation, as it gives me something to look forward to. But I accepted I wasn't able to afford it that year. And I wasn't even praying or visualizing or manifesting a holiday. I literally didn't think about it again. And then my loved ones kindly treated me to Ibiza and Dubai. I couldn't believe it. They're so sweet and thoughtful. And that's the thing with the principle of generosity. It doesn't always mean finances. If you don't have a lot of money, you can still be generous with your time, love, support. And I get sometimes there are people out there who are just takers. There's a saying, if you're a giver, learn your limits because the takers don't have any. And the reason why I mention this is because you can give your all to a person, finances, love, affection, time, support, and get nothing back. But that doesn't mean those things you gave won't come back to you. I read this recently. Never regret the love you give. It returns to you in another time, in another person, in other circumstances, but it always comes back to you. And I truly believe this, yes, because of my 2023 holidays and also because of things that happened last year. I was in a tough financial situation. I was broke. Listen, I'm still going through my struggles now, but last year was a lot. And I was also suffering with very intense suicidal thoughts. Anyway, one of the main things I needed was a new bed frame. My mum kindly bought me a new mattress because I suffer with back pain, insomnia, nightmares, and chronic fatigue. So I'm in bed maybe 90% of the week. And my mattress became really soft and flimsy and uncomfortable. And the actual base of my bed was sunken in. I would literally wake up and take another sleeping pill because I didn't want to be awake in pain and discomfort. I'm going to share some pictures now of my old wall where there's an actual stain from my fatigue. I know this sounds awful, but I can go days without washing because I just don't have the energy. And where I spend so much time in bed, I left this horrible stain on my wall. It was grim. And I was so broke last year, I even had holes in my leggings and trainers. So I couldn't afford a new bed frame or new clothes, but I was hopeful that place B would help me out. The one I mentioned earlier, that's like drawing blood from a stone. Anyway, that didn't happen. And it's nuts because it's like my friends knew it wasn't going to happen, because as soon as I realized it for myself, place B and their true intentions, my friends rallied around me like that. Straight away, one friend kindly gifted me this beautiful, comfortable bed frame. Other friends got me new leggings, new trainers, a drowsy silk blindfold to help me sleep better, and even treated me to a massage for my back pain. And I didn't ask for any help. Everyone had just seen how I'd been messed about financially and how much I'd been struggling. And they were just so incredibly thoughtful and generous. And I would say to them, there's no way I'm able to pay you back. And they'd say, Rochelle, we're doing this because you have done and or would do the exact same for us. So basically, my point is with this particular story, what you do will come back to you. It might not come back from the person or the place you thought it would, but I do believe it comes back to you at some point. Even a very close relative of mine, I've seen her first husband cheat on her and her second husband cheat on her. She's been through so much heartache and betrayal over the years. But I look at her life now and I look at her exes and I think, wow, this is the perfect example of what goes around comes around, because she's now living her dream life. And I won't go into her exes, but if I could choose anyone's life to live out of them all, it would definitely be hers. She's also a perfect example of the saying, the reason why I get blessed in the end is because I don't do people how they do me. And I want to emphasize on the word end, because sometimes you don't get your blessings straight away. But I believe if you continue to live with integrity and don't do people how they do you, your blessings will eventually come. And I actually have proof of that in my life this year with my living situation and safety. But I'll wait a little while before I share in detail because I need a couple more things to fall into place first. Another interesting perspective I heard a while ago regarding people who have taken advantage or wronged you is to look at them like you are part of their answered prayer. If they took love from you, time from you, money from you, let them keep it. They needed it. And maybe God answered their prayer through you. I'm not saying look at all people like that, because majority are just straight up users. But now, looking at some people that might have used me, I don't even have any resentment, because I think, do you know what? Pay it forward. If my generosity helped you during a time of need, then what a blessing and what an honor and a privilege it is to even have the ability to help someone else in need. Now, I wanted to finish off with a couple toxic positivity bits. One in particular that can hit a nerve with me is it made you stronger, or it made you who you are today. Made me who I am today. I am exhausted. My internal sense of safety has been completely destroyed, and it can take years, even decades after the trauma has ended to get that sense of safety back. Now, I understand when people say these things, they usually mean it from a good place, but I want to share this quote on screen now. Your trauma made you stronger. No, my trauma made me traumatized. It made me weak, gave me sleepless nights and memory loss. It gave me feelings I've never wanted. I made myself stronger by dragging myself out of a dark place and dealing with consequences that weren't my fault. So when I want to avoid hearing certain phrases that can upset me, I've learned to communicate that with my loved ones. I'll message them or I'll call and say to them, I just need to vent, I need to cry, but I don't want to hear any positivity. I remember one time I had Facebook memories pop up from my wedding day, and I messaged it to my friend saying, I missed her so much. And she replied talking about relationships and marriages. And I was like, no. I don't miss him. I don't miss being married. What I meant was I miss the old me. I was looking at those pictures thinking, wow, I was so happy and carefree back then. And I explained that to her because my friends aren't psychic. They're not going to know 100% of the time what headspace I'm in to know the right things to say. And that's actually a pet peeve of mine. It's usually entitled people that expect everyone to be mind readers and talk down about their loved ones. They should have said this, they should have done that, they should have checked in more. But what if they're going through something themselves? They can't pour from an empty cup. And it's like the oxygen mask analogy. You need to put the mask on yourself first before you can help anyone else. Alex L. wrote, the older I get, the less time I have for people who switch up or act funny instead of communicating. Bye. Life is too short. Use your words or stay gone. Anyway, my point is communication is really helpful when you're struggling. The better you request your needs, the better we can help each other. And that's what I love about my gem. She said to me last year, when times feel tough, I cannot stop the downpour, but I will always join you for a walk in the rain. And that meant the world to me. Because realistically, there are certain circumstances that loved ones can't help you with. Or for me last year, my loved ones could only help to a certain extent when it came to my health, my finances, where I was living. But just having them there to listen and be my shoulder to cry on, that was more helpful to me than any toxic positivity. I'm going to leave you now with some different phrases to choose from that I personally find more supportive, and some links in the description that you might find helpful too. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.